What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Win With Nabs, and today we're here with Karate Combat heavyweight champion Smilin Sam Alvey. Welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thank you so much, my friend. Hey, and light heavyweight champion too, double champ.
Double champ. We got the double champ in the house. We're about to have an awesome interview. Let's get right into it. So, I've never heard of a champion in a combat sport that used to be a trumpet player and massive musician. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I was a band nerd until I was about 21 or so. But I call myself a semi-professional trumpet player. I never got paid, but people in the band did. And I loved it. I was good at it, but I never made any money. As soon as they started paying me for fighting, I dropped the trumpet. I've never picked it up again. I said, all right, I'm a fighter now. And it's worked out pretty well.
I would say so. I'd also say it's a pretty big movement for some of the band kids. You know, I think they get a lot of flack all the time. Oh my God, this guy's in band. But proving all the stereotypes wrong.
A band guy, Gerald Mearshart.
Really?
He's apparently like better than I ever was at every instrument. So there's a couple of us out there, but only a couple.
So let's talk about this. So you were doing band, you were in college, and then you started shifting over to training MMA. What was that like, and how did the transition happen?
Yeah, so the transition happened when I started getting paid. I didn't train. I didn't know. I never watched the UFC. Never watched anything. It's like Jackie Chan and the Ninja Turtles. They were my inspiration behind everything. And some guy said, "Hey, you want to fight?" So okay, let's do it. And I didn't know the rules at all. I dropped on my floor to him. He was bleeding. I said, "I won." Not the rules. Rules are you can get back up and give it back to me. And he did. he got back up, took me down, and beat the brakes off me. So okay, well I can do this. I almost won that time. So I jumped back in again, like I don't know, a week and a half later, and I boom
with no experience, by the way.
None. I turned pro without any experience.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Without ever stepping foot in like
without
an MMA
ever
gym.
Doing a thing. I was in a Kempo dojo doing weapons, so I could nunchuck all right.
That doesn't translate to a fight.
Yeah, there's nothing for fighting. Yeah. Second fight, blasted the guy. He fell over, died. It was great. I had one more fight, and then I got to fight in Russia as an amateur still. And I dominated over in Russia. It was a 2-week trip, and it was just about as much fun as a guy could have. Got back on a Monday. On Wednesday, I got a call saying, hey, you want to fight a heavyweight tournament on Saturday? So let's do it. So I went up. I won 3 fights in one night, knocked all 3 out, and they gave me $1,000 and said, all right, you're a pro now. I said, okay.
You can make a career out of this.
Yes, I'm a pro now. Then I had a couple fights, and eventually I said, I should start training. And so I started a gym where I was the head coach of the gym. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew if they didn't take me down, jiu-jitsu didn't work. So I said everything's takedown defense and trying to hit the guy real hard. And it worked really well for me for a long time. I had that gym for 3 or 4 years. And then and we were a successful gym too. Like our gym we weren't undefeated, but we were close. I think we won Gym of the Year in Wisconsin a year or two.
Wow.
It was wonderful, but I needed more. So my wife, my fiance at the time, she said, you got to go to where you're the little fish. So she sent me out to California, Dan Henderson's gym. And on day one, I learned how little of a fish I was. I was probably 12-1 or 12-2 as a pro. And I learned immediately, there's levels.
How humbling was that experience for you, and realizing how much more there was to grow and learn?
Oh, it was great. I didn't know who Dan Henderson was. Like I still wasn't watching the UFC. No,
So even when you were 12-2, 12-1 pro, you had no idea what was going on.
At that point, I had heard of the UFC, and somebody said you could make money doing this, and I was getting paid. Back when I was getting paid, it was like $250 a hotel and some gas. That's what you're fighting for. So I fought a lot. Eventually got up there, and I moved out there. I met Dan Henderson. That is when I learned who Dan Henderson was. And we sparred that first round. I still remember. He had this clinch, and I was fighting. Boom, and he caught me with his uppercut, and he just kicked my jaw. Like it felt like my jaw was broken. And it was, you don't have any money as a fighter. Says, well, my jaw's broken. That's the way it's going to be from now on. And it was probably a week or so before everything straightened itself out. But that was the punch that made me realize, okay, there's levels. I need to get better at this.
So let's talk about that evolution and climbing up the ladder and eventually going from different promotions to even making it into the UFC. How did you see yourself continue to evolve and have a growth mindset and getting better at fighting? Especially given that you went from literally just being really naturally adept at fighting to actually training with somebody like Dan Henderson and sparring with real professionals like yourself.
One of the biggest things was I learned jiu-jitsu. I'm a black belt. It took me 17 years, but I got that black belt. That was one of the biggest things. I know I can roll on the ground with anyone. I know there'll always be those super pros, those Gordon Ryans out there that'll be able to do what they want to me as long as I'm not allowed to punch them. But the jiu-jitsu, and then Hendo, he's got that Greco style. So getting taken down I'm really good at not getting taken down a lot because of my mindset of jiu-jitsu is scary. a lot of what Hendo has shown over the years too.
And how much do you think when you were actually learning how to get better, you improved by being able to work with people who knew what they were doing versus you were just very strong, very good at what you were doing naturally? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Naturally, I say I hit real hard and I can get hit real hard. That was my natural talent. Everything else was I learned a lot of bad habits that worked for me. Once I got to where they were making good habits, I got to keep some of my bad ones to make my style. But I got to learn how to actually throw a kick. I actually do this. I actually, move and circle and in and out. I got to learn it from guys that knew how to do it. And it was a constant learning experience. To this day, I'll never say I'm the best in any gym because I know there's somebody in that gym that'll be able to show me something new. So I'm still learning now, and it's weird to call yourself humble about it because as soon as you call yourself humble, you're not humble anymore. But in the gym setting, I
still think that it's a very humble mindset, right? To be able to walk into any gym and you think that there's something you can learn.
Absolutely. From anyone in that gym, they can show me something. So I'm still in that process of learning how to fight better.
So let's talk about, I was going to get to this later, but I guess it does really fit in. You're now 39 and you've been fighting for quite some time. You've been developing, you've been getting better time and time. How do you stay competitive, especially when I would imagine you're training with younger guys? And how do you make sure that you're at the top of your game regardless of getting older and all that things? Obviously the body starts to slow down. How do you make sure that you're at the top of your game always?
Rocky said it best. The power is the last thing to leave. I've always fought like an old guy. I've never been particularly fast. I've always hit real hard. Dan Henderson said it once, people are willing to trade with me, and I'm okay with that. He said, I'm going to hit hard. And it's always kind of been the case with me. I've always kind of fought like an old guy, and it's worked really well. So as I'm becoming an old guy myself, I'm fighting very similar.
Your style's always been the same.
I'm still kind of the same guy. I haven't really lost that step yet. I'm sure it's coming, but it's not here yet.
So as you look forward to the next phases of your fight career, how do you see it panning out? What are your goals?
I would love for someday people to be making Chuck Norris jokes about me. That is what I want. I want to have that karate career when I'm, 80 or however old he is. People are going to say, the boogeyman checked under his bed for Smilin Sam, not the other way around.
And I have to ask you, I ask all my guests this. I'm a big believer that part of fighting, part of life is bouncing back from loss. And I believe that winners lose more than losers do because you learn way more from your losses than you do your wins, right? So what has been the toughest fight of your life? It could be inside the octagon, inside the pit, whatever it is, outside. What has that been for you?
Tell you what, fighting obesity is a rough one.
I've been there.
I am slowly losing that battle. But no, seriously, some of the toughest fights I've had were fights that I didn't expect to be as difficult as they were. I remember it would have been my third professional fight. I was supposed to fight Rob Smith. Man, I can't believe I remember everyone's name. I was supposed to fight Rob Smith. He backed out. Then I was supposed to fight another fella, and then like a day before, he backed out. And so at the arena, I had sold all the tickets. Some guy, Trey McNitt, I think that was his name. He said, I'll fight him. And that was, I won the fight, but I don't remember the fight. He cracked me early, and then I was running on auto control after that. And it was just a fight. A guy, I don't know that he ever fought again. He had a couple fights under his belt at the time. But I remember that fight being, this was rough. This should not have been that hard. And so that might have been the hardest fight of my life, but not necessarily just because of who he was, but the timing and how it all came together.
How do you find yourself when you're in some of these situations, especially during a fight? How do you adapt, right? Because there's a lot of times where you have to adapt, something you don't anticipate for. How do you find yourself and how do you make those shifts during a fight?
Yeah, the way I've always trained is I'm not necessarily training to be to learn the secret moves and to, this is my game plan. I'm training to train myself, so if I get hit, my body's going into auto drive. Hopefully when I get out there before I get hit, my body is in auto drive. I'm just performing the way I know it has to. I'm not out there thinking anything. So if something goes wrong, ideally I've been in that position in practice.
You know naturally what to do.
And my body's just going to take over. And it's worked for me pretty well. My last fight was against Tyrone Spong, and I caught him with a cross. Might have been the first cross knockout I've ever had. It's always been my lead hook. And it came naturally. I've thrown it enough in practice now that when it was time, my body said, all right, let's take it. We just read his hand movement a little bit, and I was able to time it naturally without thinking about it.
When you think that you're in a pinch, especially in a fight, and you think that it's very difficult to go on or you're struggling to go on, how do you keep yourself in the fight? How do you stay motivated to keep going?
I don't know that that's a problem I've ever had.
Really?
I'm a lot of fighters they're always winning. Like it doesn't matter what the odds are, I'm winning. I don't care if I'm plus 800. So I'm obviously going to win. And in a fight, you're even in that bad spot. It's like, I'm not in a bad spot. I'm fine.
I'll find a way out of this.
Yes. The biggest one I've probably had, the closest I've had, was I was fighting Carl Amasu for Bellator. And he was a French judo fella. And he yeeted me immediately, broke 2 of my ribs, like off the bat.
Immediately broke 2 of your ribs.
2, like in the first minute of the fight. And I remember he got on, he was mounted, he was blasting, he's elbowing. And I roll one way to get out of it, and my ribs, whoa, can't do that. So I go the other way. I survived the round. I get back to the corner, and everyone's panicking and patching me up and all that. And I remember as I was getting up, there's blood everywhere. And I remember the thought, I don't remember hitting him. Where is he bleeding from? And I get back to the corner. That's when my corner gets said, no, he's not bleeding. It's you. So, so my corner, my wife particularly, who is my chief corner and always has been, always will be. She, centered me, said, listen, all right, we got to stop this. You got to stick that jab. You got to move. If we can get a low kick, get that low kick. He's looking to press, but I think he's tired. And it was really that centering moment where I got to go back out there, and then I won via decision. I won the next 2 rounds, even though I got beat up that first round.
It's never over till it's over.
That's
right. You can't leave anything on the table.
Yeah.
And how do you make sure that when you're in those situations, I mean, you just keep fighting. It doesn't matter. You're still in the pit. You're still in the octagon. You can't just stop. There's nobody to bail you out there.
Nobody to bail me out. And that right now, the combat sports in general, the referees are going through a metamorphosis where they're stopping fights early.
There's a lot of controversy now. Even in the UFC, the Aspinall situation a few months ago.
It's killing me. How early I would much rather die in that cage than have them stop it early. I just would. And I know every fighter feels the same way. So now you get in the bad spot, and my brain is not necessarily I have to get out of this bad spot. It's I have to make sure the ref doesn't stop it. And I wish the refs would take a step back for a little bit longer, because it would make a big difference to the mentality of the fighters in the moment.
Out of curiosity, as another heavyweight, what are your thoughts, though, when there is a situation like a penalty, right? Especially an egregious eye poke that's really deep in the eye. Obviously, someone like yourself, you said you would keep fighting regardless of the circumstances. What do you think in general for combat sports when there are penalties like that?
So the eye poke, I would say, should be an immediate disqualification loss for the guy who's doing the poking. There is never an advantage of doing that, ever. There never has been, there never will be. It is strictly a way to cheat, or a way to threaten me by cheating. Even if it doesn't land, it's keeping
it's there.
I know it's there, and it will change the way I fight. I think take a point if they do it once and it doesn't land, disqualify him if it ever lands. There's no reason, there's no advantage outside of a cheating situation for that to happen. Everything else, cup shots, there are the cup shots that hurt, but most don't. Our cups are pretty good and it's pretty protected. A lot of the times we say, oh no, my cup. It's just to make sure the judges see it, so if it happens again, you get that point. Rarely. So when Pereira, one of the coolest moments ever.
Oh, 300.
And he waved them off and then
finishes him. That's crazy.
That was just the moment. Stuff like that could be very easily what all of us do, but we're not as manly as he is. Yeah.
I think it's pretty hard to wave it off instead of just like, give me a second, I need to rest for a bit.
It's great, and we train that way in practice, the not waving off. We get hits, everyone's sorry about that, and give yourself a second, shake it off, and then you get back into it. But you get used to fighting like you train. My brain in the flow state, like hitting the cup in practice, everyone takes a second. So in a fight, even if it doesn't hurt, you get hit, so you take a second. And I understand that it happens. The eye pokes are never good. The cup shots, they happen.
So you've also been competing for a long amount of time at this point. How do you stay competitive and eager to keep competing? What keeps you going?
The paychecks. My other option is I have to get a real job. I don't want a real job. I like doing this too much. I get to travel the world. I get to talk with people from all races and religions and sex and genders, and I get to get paid to do it. It is just the most. I've been so blessed by the opportunities I get. I'm just taking advantage of it until the good Lord says my ride's up. And I enjoy doing this. I've been to 53 or 54 different countries.
Wow.
I have been everywhere doing this, and it's just been a blessing. Every day I wake up and I just thank God that I get that opportunity to go and train, that opportunity to compete. So I always like to joke, it's for the paycheck. I couldn't do it without the paycheck, but I have been blessed with the opportunities that I've been given, and that just keeps me keeping these opportunities coming is what's driving me.
Where's been the coolest place you fought in outside the U.S. then?
Oh,
I say outside the U.S. because it doesn't get better than here, but.
So it's the word coolest. It's like there have been some cool. Like my last fight against Tyrone was in Dubai. That might have been my coolest place I've ever fought. Not physically. Physically, it was really hot.
It's pretty hot.
Yeah.
It is the desert, but.
It was pretty. My favorite place I've ever fought was Mexico City. I got to fight there twice. And my first time fighting there was against Alex Nicholson. It was during Del Muertes, that Day of the Dead. They had the week and all that. So me and I want to say I had 2 kids at the time, maybe 3, but 2 at least. We took them downtown Mexico City. We got our faces painted. We got the experience, Day of the Dead in Mexico City, and it was just amazing. A year later, I got to go back to the same hotel, same everything to fight Rashad Evans. So I got to fight Rashad.
Oh,
so
that was a big one.
That was pretty great. But the hotel we stayed at a year ago remembered us. And it just, to this day, it meant the world to me. They remembered us. They remembered stuff about us. It was just too cool. And so that was when they, recognized me and my family. That was the most, okay, this is the best place I've ever fought. That's
a pretty nice feeling. They remember you.
It was amazing. And they weren't fight fans. They were, hotel staff. They were people that just, I don't know. I did something a year prior that made them remember the moment. And now I'll remember them forever.
So obviously you have a big fight coming up. And for Karate Combat 59, you're going to be defending your belt. How are you feeling about that? How have preparations gone?
Yeah, so I'm fighting Robelis to Spain, and I couldn't be happier. This is a fight, and President Awesome could tell you, the day they signed him, the day it was announced that the Spaniards, I messaged him saying, I want to fight him, put him in. And he said, nah, we don't need that fight now. You're doing great at 205. We're going to keep building that division. I said, okay, but I want the fight. And we found a way to make it happen. We found a way. It took about a year or so to do, but we got it done, and I couldn't be happier. This is the fight that I will be able to tell my great-grandchildren about.
Oh, this is a massive fight.
In 50 years from now, when I'm, 107 or however old I'll be, I'll be able to say, yes, I fought Rashad Evans, and they're not going to know who Rashad Evans. I fought this guy, I fought that. I'll be able to say, I fought a man who was, had 10 inches on me. He had 40 pounds on me, and he could have seen my bald spots if he wanted to. Being able to fight a guy as large as him is something that will go beyond name recognition. It'll last me generations.
And how eager are you? I mean, because you said you've been asking for this fight now for over a year. You've obviously been planning. How ready are you coming into this fight?
I feel so good right now. I've had a good camp. I'm in good shape. Nothing's injured, thank God. And now every fighter will always say that nothing's injured, but I mean it this time. I swear I mean it this time. I had a fight with Karate Combat. I broke my foot 20 minutes before the fight.
How did you break your foot 20 minutes before a fight?
It was down in Mexico, down Playa de Carmen. That sounds right. And it was an outdoor event. And so they built the tents and all that, and they had crates, and they put mats over the crates. I was shadowboxing. The crates were separated at one point, but there were mats over it. I didn't, so I stepped and it rolled my foot. And so I had Justin Danger Nunley, TikTok superstar. He was in there cornering me and all that. And he actually caught it all on film too. And you hear me say, guys, I think I just broke my foot. And my guy's like, what? So, pretty sure I just broke my foot. I said, let's give it some time and we'll see what happens. And like I said, it's 20 minutes before the fight. So I'm trying to walk it off, trying to fight. And it's like, oh, this is bad, guys. Do you want us to call the fight? He said, no, I'm the main event. I'm not calling the fight. This is the card was built for me. I am no way in hell. And so I went out there and I tried to hide the limp as best I could. And immediately everybody saw I was limping. After the fact, I went back and watched it. Like I get to the top of the pit, and my first step, it was like Boss was saying, oh, I think something's wrong with his foot. He's not walking quite right. So I hid nothing. Yeah, everybody will say they're not injured. They all will, but I'm
all fighters, and then after the fight, sometimes when they lose, it's like, oh, I had this injury. But it's hard. I mean, obviously, a situation like where you have an injury 20 minutes before a fight, you can't just pull out then. There's no replacement for you.
Yeah, nothing. I came up with the motto right then and there after the fight: tougher than smart. I'm tougher than smart. But I told all the guys backstage, like, guys, if I lose this fight, you don't tell a soul I broke my foot. I win this fight, you guys tell.
You tell everyone.
Everybody will know that I fought with a broken foot. But that was, and I think that's on camera somewhere too. Me telling the guys.
How did that feel? I mean, that's like a pretty cool thing. Like that you're able to fight through that and have that kind of experience and still be a warrior, just fight through it.
It's great for me. It's terrible for my kids because every time they're hurt, I get to, I fought.
I fought with a broken foot.
I fought one of the greatest in the world with a broken foot. Okay, Dad, we know.
So I wanted to move on to now some part of your name, Smilin Sam Alvey. And what I really like about it is that's very positive, very optimistic. I think sometimes, especially in fight sports, and it is very, I'm not going to take away from anyone. It's very cool. You get a lot of these like cooler personas or like, about like hunting or whatever, or like when attack someone. It's very positive. It's very uplifting. So where did it come from?
I've always been a happy guy. Even when I was tooting on my trumpet, I've always been very smiley. It was my dad that came up with it first. I remember we're sitting around the dining nook at our house back in Wisconsin, talking, hey, if I'm going to do this, my goal was I always wanted to be a WWE wrestler. That was my goal. I wanted that more than anything. To this day, I want that more than anything. I don't know if it's ever going to happen. But we were talking, it's like, well, if this is something you want, we should probably get that name where people will remember you by. So we're, talking about it, and the Grin Reaper got brought up, and this, that's not it. So my dad said, well, what about Smiling Sam? I said, oh, I like it. But I said, I want the apostrophe capital N because it was just the time. Everything was extreme with an X or the apostrophe. So I wanted the apostrophe N, and I said, okay, let's do it. And then Smiling Sam was born. And what a good call that was. The Grin Reaper would have been terrible. Oh, my dad saved me years of disappointment for going with Smilin instead of the Grin Reaper.
And so how much do you think that translates to now you as a person, you as a father as well, and how much do you think that changed things for you and how you approach the world? Or have you've always just been this very optimistic guy?
I've always been a positive guy. I really am. I know the good Lord's got my back. Well, the worst thing he could do to me isn't that bad because he's got my back. So I've got every reason in the world to smile. I get to do a job. I get to fight for a living, which I would do for free, but they pay me to do it. Don't tell them I do it for free, but honest to God, I love what I do, and I've got every reason in the world to smile because of it.
I love that. And I got to ask you, what does it mean to you to win outside the cage?
You mean in
life,
Pokemon with the kids? Oh,
there you go, right? And that's a form of victory.
No, it's everything. It's been a wonderful life. I own a food truck now. I work that with my wife, and my kids are getting part of it when they can be. My kids are all in school. They're all wrestling. They're playing baseball. They're playing soccer, and they like soccer. God, I wish they didn't like soccer, but they love soccer. I wish they liked the real sport. I'm sorry, Felix.
You're talking about football?
I'm talking about soccer.
No, I meant the real sport.
Yes, the real sport, football. And it's just, to me, I wake up and something's going to go right today. I just wake up knowing something's going to be good today. I can wake up on the wrong side of the bed. But having that faith, just something's going to go right. I'm going to focus on that more than I focus on anything else.
So now we've reached the last segment of Win With Nabs. I'm going to ask you some really quick questions. We're going to hit the speed bag. You ready?
Okay.
What's the greatest lesson you've learned from fighting?
Can't means I don't want to.
Biggest misconception about you?
That it's a persona. That the Smiling Sam isn't actually who I am.
Are the Packers winning the Super Bowl this year?
Packers are going to the Super Bowl every year. They're America's
it's not
team.
happening.
They're America's team.
I think they're going to lose to the Bears on Sunday, but
no, it doesn't happen. We haven't lost to the Bears in like 20 years.
They're looking good this year. Scary good. Thank you so much for coming on to the show today, Champ. And if you guys like this episode, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button down below on Win With Nabs. We'll catch you in the next one.